What's up, metalheads? Thanks for stopping by today and checking out Tony's Drunk Music Reactions. If you're new and this is your first time here, please consider hitting the subscribe button and the bell notification button. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for the continued support. So this is actually going to be my first official reaction video here on this channel, and it is going to be on Parkway Drive's new song Glitch. It's the first song that they've released in about 4 years. Now, I want to be honest up front. Obviously, I am a Parkway Drive fan. I will try to keep this as least biased as possible. Also, in the namesake of being transparent, this video only, I'm going to try and not do this in the future, but this video only, I have already heard the song and I have seen the music video. Some of the reactors that I agree with, like Alex Hefner, Richard Janbrin, and Orion Reacts, had a lot of positive things to say, and they did call out some things they didn't like, which we will all discuss as well, but I agreed with a lot of what they said. And then there were some other reactors where I felt like they were just way off, and me as a Parkway Drive fan, I know a little bit more of their backstory, so I'm not going to try and defend every little point here, and I'm not just going to give them an automatic 10, but there are some points that we're going to get into here. So it's going to be one of my longest videos, but I will put timestamps down in the video description so you can kind of skim through. So what I'm going to start with first is kind of a background on how I got into Parkway and all that stuff, and then we will watch the video. I'm gonna not pause it every 2 seconds to skip copywriting, but I am gonna stop it a couple of times just to kind of point things out going on within the video. If you want to watch the video without any pausing, obviously you can go and watch the actual music video, which I will link down in the video description. This is more for opinion and educational purpose type thing, so that's why we're going to be doing the pausing. But once we get through the music video and discuss a couple things throughout it, at the end of the video, that is where this video is going to get a little bit longer. That's where I'm going to break everything down, explain maybe why or my thoughts on things, bring up what other reactors said, any counterpoints that I might have, or any counterpoints to comments I was reading on the video, and form our own opinions from there. So like I said, in the future, videos will be shorter, and they will be videos that I have not seen, but this is kind of the one that just sparked it all for me. Kind of all the controversy going on is what made me want to start this channel, so it's kind of a special one for me. Hopefully you can stick with for the whole thing. Alright, so let's get going on the history here and how I got into Parkway. So just to kind of date myself a little bit here, born in 1990, graduated high school in 08. That's when, you know, my real life started. You know, you don't have to deal with the school anymore until college starts, and I'm out having fun with friends. Pandora, the music app, I think came out in like 06 or so, and so around 08 is when I found out about Pandora, started listening to a little bit heavier music like Avenged Sevenfold, stuff like that. And around 2009 on Avenged Sevenfold Radio on Pandora, Parkway Drive, It's Hard to Speak Without a Tongue came on, and I really liked the sound of that song, and so I kind of started listening to Parkway a lot more. And at the time, that was heavier than anything I'd ever heard. They were, and still kind of are, regarded as like the metalcore kings. I know a lot of people, the last album or two, maybe even 3, will dispute that because they are kind of working away from the metalcore, more towards the heavy metal side of things, which you will hear in this song, and you would have heard if you have heard their album Reverence. So at the time there in 2009, I believe their most recent album was Horizons, that came out in 2006. Then in 2010, their album Deep Blue dropped, and I fell in love with that album too. I still believe to this day, it's my opinion, and it's really hard for me because I'm being 100% honest when I say I can listen to every Parkway album front to back. There's not a single song that I don't like, and that is a very hard thing to say about almost every other band. Even like my second, third favorite bands, there's a few songs that I'm probably just like, you know what I mean? And so that's very impressive to me. But a lot of hardcore, like metalcore fans that liked Parkway in the beginning will say that they sold out and they've never been the same since Deep Blue or Atlas. You know, I liked Atlas, I liked Ire, I liked Reverence. I'm hoping to like this new album they're going to drop here soon, but I am a little disappointed. They're still doing their European tour, I believe, but they canceled the US tour, and we'll get into that later. But so that's just kind of some background on me, how I got into Parkway, and ever since I found out about them on Pandora, which is funny because Parkway Drive has a song called Pandora. It's just been never looked back since that day, and I've just been a really big fan of them. I have seen them live 3 or 4 times. It's always a great show. They never disappoint. I swear at least half the time one of the members is playing in a wheelchair. They're very dedicated in what they do, but they love having fun Also, as the name would suggest, we have to have some sort of alcohol to go with Tony's drunk music reaction. So today we're slamming back some Kona Big Waves. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Let's turn it up.
Sleep deprivation trial 7. Subject 0. Lie down.
I really like that skull head thing. Alright, so not to stop right away or anything, but you can see, kind of take note of how Winston's in real rough looking shape here, and really pay attention to the video in general, because it doesn't look like it was a cheap video to make. It does seem pretty good quality. Have to admire Winston's like psychopathic dedication to the acting here. And really want to point out that it's still a heavy tone, but we don't have anything crazy going on right away. Not real technical drums, just heavy, slow drum. And we still got that, you know, nu metal, Euro metal, anthem, stadium metal, arena metal, whatever you want to call it. Very similar to what was going on in Reverence. So not surprised. This seems to be, you know, it's nothing super crazy. It just seems to be kind of on par, following up after Reverence so far. Let's keep listening.
Feel a glitch in the cortex, like a ghost in the shadow. Got the devil playing my tricks. I feel a dread close in like the walls of a cell. I cannot sleep. I cannot hide. I cannot take. No more now on the dark side of my mind. I close my eyes to sleep.
Teddy bears.
Shadows speak, and they won't stop when I'm awake.
Alright, so a couple more things to address right here. First, I want to mention we have kind of a new vocal style from Winston. He has rapped previously, he's done like the whispering thing previously, but he's got this like squeak to it almost, which we'll get into again later at the end of the video. But he's like, I feel a glitch in the cortex! You know what I mean? Like, kind of all over the place with the pitch, which is, I think, a first for them in that manner. I'll have to go back and watch some other stuff of theirs, but that's unique. And then I also want to point out where it showed like the teddy bears and it was doing it didn't really flow the greatest, which is why people get a little annoyed in that part there and they don't really like it, but it kind of reminds me of like the Twilight Zone music, and Winston's doing some gravelly, gritty whispers and vocals there. So just wanted to kind of point out those items there. Let's get on into the chorus.
Everything they say would seem feeds the fear inside of me. Let it feed the fear inside. Help me take this pain away. Sleep is now my enemy. Now it feeds the fear inside of me. The fear inside of me.
Alright, so pretty catchy chorus, if I'm being honest, and this is the first time we're hearing actual cleans, I believe, from Winston. You know, like I said, he's done his whispers and stuff before, but the chorus there with actual cleans, I think that's the first time we've heard true cleans from them, and I've been wondering when they were finally going to do that, so it's good to see that there. Again, in the chorus, throughout the whole song, really just real chunky, punchy guitars and drums. And then you got the typical callback there. He says at the end of the chorus, the fear inside of me, followed with the scream, the fear inside of me. Like very typical metalcore style there. So, and again, make sure to just kind of pay attention to the quality of the video and the commitment to acting here.
The fear hit like a shell shock, but it froze like my heart stopped. Rim waves got my limbs locked down, but my eyes wide open. Sheer terror manifests before me. I cannot sleep. I cannot hide. I cannot think. Living this way in the dark side of my mind. I close my eyes to sleep. The shadows speak, and they won't stop when I'm awake. Everything they say.
Catchy chorus.
Feeds the fear inside of me.
Pretty cool effects. Ben's slaying the drums in a big hand. Pretty badass. We got the bridge here, aka the build up for the breakdown. A lot of people complain that it's too long and drawn out. Again, I can see where they're coming from, but this song is going to slam live. Imagine this big circle pit just growing right now.
Let me out. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out. Let me
out.
Let me out. Let me out. Let me the fuck out.
Telling you, man, live at Wacken.
Let me the fuck out. Everything they said was seen beats the fear inside of me.
Again, coming out of their, I wouldn't necessarily call it a breakdown, it's more of like a riff down or a groove down, but at the end they have a very signature Parkway Drive sound. I can hear a Parkway song and just know it's Parkway. They're just one of those bands that has the unique sound, but when they come out of the breakdown there and it's just like and then back into the chorus right away, I don't know, just slick. There's that repeat again. There's the hand.
I cannot sleep. I cannot hide. I cannot take one more night on the dark side of my mind.
All right, there it is. Glitch by Parkway Drive. So not a crazy breakdown, but just kind of a nice riff down or groove down, if you will, with heavy guitar, heavy drum, very simple, but just heavy. And it's going to get the crowd just going, I think, when they play it live. Well, apparently I have a new lap dog. Somebody was a little jealous I was having fun without them. Big yawn. You say hi? Say hi to the camera? Huh? Alright, apologies for getting off track there. So, there is the music video. Now is going to be the long part. If you've watched so far, I appreciate it, and if you continue to watch, more power to you. If you're a big Parkway Drive fan, or you really want to kind of get into the song or whatever, I suggest that you do stick along, just because I do get pretty in-depth here. But real quick, just kind of an overview again with Parkway, what's kind of going on with them. They've been posting a lot of social media posts recently, many of them mental health related. They actually canceled the US tour, which sucks because I haven't seen them in 4+ years, and they're always a great show, like I said. But for whatever reason, I think they're keeping the European tour. So my theory behind that is not that they don't like the US fans. I'll post up pictures here of their posts explaining, their reasoning for this. I've seen all 3 of their documentaries now at this point, so I kind of know where they're coming from. Based off what they say on their documentaries, they've always been a band where it's like they love playing the music, but they also like to plan their tours around things to do. So like if they're touring in Australia, they're going to go riding motorcycles, pedal bikes, surfing, stuff like that. I think the problem with the US is you're in like a different city every night pretty much, or every other night, and there's not as like big of things to do as where by dropping the US, that gives them a little bit more freedom. They're not spread as thin, so they don't have to come overseas to the US, which again, I'm bummed about it, but it does make sense from their standpoint, I think. Dropping one of your countries gives you more of the space and time that you need, especially when you get into Europe. Very, very big festivals, and that's where all the money's at, like Wacken, stuff like that. So the fact that they can play less shows that are bigger shows and make like the same amount of money, I think that's kind of why they're sticking with the European and dropping the US. which, I mean, I understand why a lot of people are upset by that. They feel like, you know, they're just catering to the bigger money, and especially moving to this new type of music. Their older fans basically are just feeling kind of alienated because they're not coming to the US to play for us. They're not playing their old stuff. Everyone wants to hear Horizons for the 7th time, which, again, amazing album, but they're just probably not going to do it again. And so you've got this kind of weird thing going on where it's like, you want to feel for the band. You want to support them, especially after being locked up for COVID in Australia. They had very heavy, strict lockdowns. They were locked up for 2 years. Like, being in the States here, we were never anywhere near that. So if you're in the States and you're like, oh, big deal, like, you have no clue how bad it was there. So I get exactly where they're coming from, but it still really does suck that they're dropping the US tour. But hopefully, while I've been jibber jabbering here, you've had a chance to kind of read all of the posts and clips that I've put up on the screen. And one of the big things, I don't think it's intentionally, but the one post where it's like, craving to be back on stage, and they were just saying how they needed to take a break a few months ago because of their mental health. So I don't know if it's one of the band members doing it or if they have someone that's managing their socials, but they don't seem to quite understand. Maybe they do and they don't care, I don't know, but they don't seem to quite understand that they're really pissing off the Americans right now, because they keep making posts that kind of contradict each other. So a little bit of frustration there. I'm just glad to have some new music. I'm excited for a new album. You know, hopefully within the next couple years they can make it back to the US and make it up to us. For those of you that may be interested, you are in Europe or you're able to make it to either of those shows, they will be touring with While She Sleeps and Lorna Shore. Now, since I am a little behind everybody else making reaction videos to this, I have some more information that some of them did not, which is the fact that there is a new album coming out. Obviously, there's new music here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a new album. This song, Glitch, I did some real deep delving into the interwebs, and this song, Glitch, was actually their first song that they started writing after Reverence, but it took them 4 years to write it. We'll get into that later. But again, I think this is a natural progression sound from Reverence with all that kind of Euro metal sound going on. It's not vastly different from Reverence so far, but obviously there is new elements to it that make it a little bit different. So again, as I just kind of point things out about the song or certain facts or different references, I'm going to post pictures or video clips to coincide with all that. So I'll start again with the kind of new vocal style, slight new vocal style. He's, like I said, he's kind of rapped before and like writings on the wall, shadow boxing, stuff like that. But it's got that glitch in the cortex pitch shift to it. Richard Janvrin had mentioned that he thought Winston sounded a little bit like Drew York from Stray from the Path. I had never heard of Stray from the Path, so I looked up a few of their songs, and I found a couple sections in which I can agree with. Play a little clip from Stray from the Path's Badge and a Bullet, just to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. And then after hearing that, I got to thinking, and I was like, you know, this kind of also reminds me of Jason Alon Butler from Fever 333, especially the song Made in America.
We are the melanin felons, we are the product of the partner of policy that you gotta love. No stores, dead bodies on the boulevard. Cop cars, true killers, and they stealing more.
Also kind of reminiscent of Atreyu's Ain't Love Grand. Atreyu does a lot of that, blah, 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 blah. But just kind of one example of it.
Get like a man, in what is the world to play? Someone somewhere stole your desire.
And in fact, if you didn't know this, it's pretty rare, but Parkway Drive actually, once in a great blue moon, performs Bulls on Parade by Rage Against the Machine, and when Winston performs that song, he does a little bit of this type of vocal style.
Let's see what you got! Come on now! The microphone explode, shatter in the bone. Leave the drum that hits the devil. Get the fuck out the road with the short shot. And make the body drop.
But then after hearing the Rage Against the Machine Parkway Drive version, I was like, you know what? I think I've actually heard Winston do a little bit of this live before. And I did some more searching, and sure as shit, I found a small clip from Absolute Power when they played Bloodstock, I believe in 2019, where he's got a little bit of the going.
Oh, your voice has got a price tag. Sounded blood, barrier rights in a body bag. 50 through the fallout, and ever
And then another kind of interesting thing that I noticed a little bit during the watching of the video, but I thought maybe I was a little paranoid, but then after watching Richard Jandrin's reaction, it was basically confirmed. He thought the same thing. He thought that the pre-chorus sounded like Metallica's One. Winston's lyrics are, "I cannot sleep, I cannot hide, I cannot take, living this way on the dark side of my mind." And the last line before that pre-chorus is, "Sheer terror manifests before me." Okay, now you go to Metallica One lyrics, and it's, "I cannot live, I cannot die, trapped in myself." And right before that part is the line, "All that I see, absolute horror." All that I see, absolute horror. Sheer terror manifests before me. I cannot sleep. I cannot live. I cannot hide. I cannot die.
Absolute horror, I cannot live, I cannot die, trapped in myself. Sheer terror manifests before me. I cannot sleep, I cannot hide, I cannot take.
You see kind of the correlation there. Now, I've delved pretty deep into the interwebs on this particular thing. We know now that some time has passed since this video has been released, that they are in fact coming out with a new album that will drop in September. That album is called Darker Still. And from what I have read and heard so far on this album is that it is going to be kind of an old school, I think it's going to be like a heavy metal style album. From the way they were talking and from what we've heard so far, it sounds like it's going to be big, heavy instruments, but slower and stripped down. In my head, I'm kind of painting a picture of Avenged Sevenfold's Hail to the King album. If you guys are familiar with them, if not, go check it out. 2013, I believe it released that album, Hail to the King, and it was just a very slower but heavy, stripped down kind of homage to the grandfathers of like rock and metal. So they had a lot of songs on that album that sounded like Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, Metallica, and I think that's what Parkway is going for with this. They're trying to go for similar vibes to like older like Dio, Metallica, stuff like that, but they're trying to do it with their own twist and without straight up just copying everything. There's a lot of parts that may sound similar, but they're structured a little differently. So, I mean, you can argue it both ways. You can say that they ripped off these lyrics or whatever, but it's like, there's so many songs in the world where if you try hard enough, you can link almost any song to another song. So at a certain point, you have to just be like, okay, well, they probably looked at this song for influence, but they're not the same notes, they're not the exact same lyrics, they're structured a little bit differently. So, but I just did want to point that out. Very familiar. Again, it just kind of reminds me of Avenged Sevenfold's Hail to the King album, and I think that is very much how this is going to be. So if you're a big fan of older Parkway Drive, you're probably going to tear your hair out and vow to never listen to Parkway again after hearing this album. But I am curious to see what it sounds like. So just to recap here on the vocal style before moving on, it is not necessarily new, but is much more prominent here, and the only time I've heard them do it previously was on the Rage Against the Machine cover and in that live performance there at Bloodstock. If you listen to their album version, he doesn't sing it like that, so maybe that was a little bit of foreshadowing there back in 2019. So now we'll kind of move on to a bit of the chorus. So a lot of people say that the vocals are lackluster, cheesy. You got teddy bears floating around. And you know, like, it's like, yes, they're teddy bears. We're grown-ass men, right? Okay, but I think it was meant to portray good and evil. Like, it's something as harmless as a teddy bear, and then they're just all fucked up looking and, like, weird and creepy. Just like this twist to it. Again, I think it's just trying to show the good and evil, the dark side to things. Just kind of have to reiterate again their mental state. Again, it's controversial because they say that they need this break, but then they're also still doing the tours. But you know, taking what they say to heart, if you know there is some of the members in the band, maybe some of the members of the band want to go hard, and some of the other ones, I know quite a few of them at this point they're either married or have kids. You know, and they've been touring nonstop, guys, for like 15, 20 years. You got to remember that. Like, they're just like Avenged Sevenfold, where they built their reputation off of heavy touring. They were essentially nobodies until Deep Blue dropped. That was their commercial breakthrough, and then they've kind of just grown since then. But yeah, I mean, it may sound cliche in today's age just because everybody's bringing it up. Oh, mental health, such an excuse, blah, blah, blah. Everyone deals with it, which we do. In today's age, there's just immense stress that everyone is under, even just the simplest things. Like, we have more technology now, things should be simpler, but there's all these little things. Even social media has a tendency to just make you feel overwhelmed, and sometimes you just need to unplug from that and get a break for a while. I don't know for sure without checking, but I know that suicides and stuff are really on the high right now. So if you or anyone you know is struggling, seek help. Don't do anything rash. But there's many people, many bands going through the same thing. Five Finger Death Punch came out with a newer song called IOU, and their lyrics are kind of on par with these lyrics here. So obviously, I mean, a lot of these people are going through kind of the same thing. I'll just show a little clip right here.
I wish someone would wake me, cause I can't sleep at all. Stuck in purgatory, waiting for the fall. Auditioned all the endings, I find it hard to tell. Is it better to serve in heaven or better to reign in?
So again, Parkway is not the only ones fighting their demons here. And then also during the kind of Twilight Zone-y part, you got some gravelly, gritty vocals from Winston about, I close my eyes to sleep. Again, people say it's cheesy. I understand that. I can see where they're coming from. He's kind of done similar vocal style to this before on like Wishing Wells.
And if I see his face in town, there's room for two down underground. Nothing's gonna stop me till I'm done. Until I'm done!
And everyone is real quick to jump on and say, oh, this is just dad rock, butt rock, blah, blah, blah. It's like, but you do have to take some appreciation because there's several vocal styles, you know, even if it's not just instrumental, but just vocals, there are certain styles within this song. He's got kind of the gravelly whisper going on. He's got that pitch-changing Drew York style rapping. He's got a yell scream, kind of like a mid scream. He's got a gravelly talk. And then we have cleans now. And then during the bridge, he says, let me out about 15 times. And every time he says it, it's a slightly different iteration of how he says it. And then followed by all those let me outs is the typical callback, low growl scream, let me the fuck out. And then right back into the chorus. And, you know, Winston just transitions effortlessly, very smoothly. So even if this song isn't your forte and it isn't the most exciting and it seems simple, you do have to kind of look at stuff like that and just acknowledge the skill that it actually took. Even if you'd think the song sucks, you know, there's plenty of songs where it's like, this took a lot of skill to make, but I think it sucks or I don't like it. And that's fine, but just acknowledge that there is quite a bit going on here, even though it sounds simple. So a little bit more continuation here. I want to focus just a little bit more on the Twilight Zone part, as I call it. For those of you that may be too young or maybe you just don't know, I'll insert some clips here as to why I call it the Twilight Zone part.
There is a fifth dimension, beyond that which is known to man. It is a dimension as vast as space and as timeless as infinity. It is the middle ground between light and shadow, between science and superstition, and it lies between the pit of man's fears and the summit of his knowledge. This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
I honestly believe, based on a lot of the black and white going on in the video and the literal sound of the guitar, I think that they were trying to kind of emulate the Twilight Zone. Again, trying to kind of focus on older things, but with their own twist on it. And while some people may argue the cheesy, simplistic, lackluster lyrics and vocals, you do have to appreciate some of the more complicated things in it. You know, I'm not saying that these are necessarily huge words, but when he's like, I feel a glitch in the cortex, it's like people normally say like, I feel a glitch in my head or I feel a glitch in my brain. Like, no, the cortex, a certain part of the brain. And he's talking about REM waves being locked down. The REM waves, I believe, is like a super deep sleep. So it's not just saying like, oh, in my head I feel this and I dream about this. They're going more in depth, a little bit more accurate to paint a better picture by using a little bit more technical words that simpler bands probably wouldn't be using. Again, I'm not saying they're the grand dictionary and they use the most complicated words ever. I really could care less about that, but just kind of pointing that out. So in the pre-chorus where Winston's like, I cannot sleep, I cannot hide, and then it just suddenly breaks into that Twilight Zone-y part. I think a lot of people, you know, it just doesn't flow the greatest and people kind of get lost and they lose their groove. Like you're kind of just getting like the head bob going when he starts like the vocals at the beginning, and then it almost immediately breaks into that, and you're just kind of like, okay, now what do I do? Like, what is this? And, you know, I can't blame them for trying to incorporate new elements, but I do understand where people get lost. And Alex Hefner hit it on the head when I watched his review video, and verbatim, he literally said, it kind of just loses me right here, to be honest. The song overall is dynamic and keeps you guessing, but has to recapture me. And that's exactly it. Like I said, you get going, you get headbanging with it, and then they lose you right there, and then it gets back into the chorus, which is catchy, so it has to recapture you there. So it could have been maybe blended. I don't know how they could have made it fit better. Honestly, they probably couldn't have, and that's why we ended up with it the way that it is now. Maybe this is the best iteration that we can get, but they wanted that element in there, and this is the best that they could make it fit. Like I mentioned earlier, it took 4 years for them to write this song. It's the first one they started writing right after Reverence, and they said something like 20 different versions before they finally finished it. So, you know, and a lot of people are talking smack, like 20 versions, and this is the best they could come up with. And it's like, well, yeah, but 20 versions of this song. So it's like, this song was always only going to be so good, and if you don't like it, you just don't like it. So. And then Finn McKenty said that your band either burned out in 2011 or lived long enough to turn into Breaking Benjamin, which to a degree I can agree. So obviously this song is more mainstream sounding. You could argue that it's more like a Breaking Benjamin, 3 Days Grace, Skillet vibe, but there's still that Parkway Drive element to it. You still know it's them. And you can say the same about the bands that I just mentioned, though they kind of have sounds to them where it's like, yeah, as soon as you hear the song, you could probably say, oh, this is them, if you've heard enough of their songs. I still would argue, I know, personal opinion, I still would argue that Parkway is ahead of all those guys, although I do love those bands that I mentioned, especially Breaking Benjamin. I was really huge into them for a while. I don't know if it's always so much being burned out, it's just that a lot of these metalcore bands that started in the early 2000s, it's not like they came out with Don't Close Your Eyes, their very first album, which some people don't even know it exists. So if you're a big fan of Killing with a Smile and Horizons, go listen to Don't Close Your Eyes. It's their first album. There's a few songs on there that are actually on Killing with a Smile that came from Don't Close Your Eyes. And it's a very raw album, very raw recording. Is not very refined, but I love it for that. So check out that album. But to get off my tangent here, bands like Parkway that have been doing this, like Devil Wears Prada, all these bands that started kind of the early 2000s, and they've been doing the heavy stuff for a long time. It's not like they just woke up one day and they were like, well, our last album was Killing with a Smile, and now we're going to release Reverence. You know what I mean? Everyone just pretends like they just instantly sold out, and that's not the case. You know, they've been around for 15, coming up on 20 years now, and they've slowly progressed. So it's like, I can understand 100% the people that liked the old stuff and they're just not into the new stuff. But even me, I can only listen to the same thing for so long. So I like that they switch it up a little bit from album to album. Now, I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't be over the moon if Parkway released like a new album in the style of, say, Deep Blue or Horizons, but different songs, or even if they took those songs and like remastered them slightly. That'd be really cool, but I just don't see it happening, unfortunately. They're just not as into that style anymore. And you can only do so many iterations of it, too. It's like how many different breakdowns. I watched an interview where Winston basically ranked his favorite albums, and he liked Horizons. He really liked Horizons, but he said that he felt like they wasted a lot of riffs because they could have done more with them at their stage of their career, which is debatable because, you know, in his mind, he's like, oh man, we could have refined this and we could have used it here, here, and here. But at the same time, because they used those riffs in Horizons when they did, is what made those songs so great. So I think he's maybe not quite understanding that not having them now, but a success back then was still a good blessing. But yeah, I can see, I think this is definitely going to be their new radio song. I think Vice Grip was their most recent radio song. I could be wrong. I don't think there was one off of Reverence on the radio. I could be wrong. Comment down below if I'm missing it. But I think this will definitely be their new radio song. It is soft enough to be on a lot of rock stations, and they're just going to kind of get their foot in the door even more with that. Just kind of get the name out there a little bit more into the more mainstream market. Which again, I don't want to see them go 100% mainstream. I do not. I want them to, you know, maintain what makes them Parkway. But yeah, I can see how people would say, oh yeah, this sounds kind of, it's real rhymey. It's kind of like a Skillet song. But then if you're being honest with yourself and you stop and think, the Parkway is heavier, it's more unique sounding, and it still bangs. It's just chunky and punchy. Here's a little isolated guitar riff clip of the YouTuber Belka in Black, just to kind of demonstrate the punch and chunk of the main riff. Pretty simple, but got good power to it. Thanks for letting me use this. Again, I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's just whatever they come out with, I just know it's Parkway. It just somehow has their sound to it. It's just slightly evolved, but you can always pick it out. And like I mentioned earlier, it just kind of reminds me of the slower, heavier Avenged Sevenfold Hail to the King album. But one thing I do have to point out, I don't know if he was joking or if he just doesn't, you know, I don't know jack shit about drums either, but I don't know if he was just joking or if he doesn't know anything about drums. But during his reaction, Finn McKenty was like, that's a straight up butt rock drum set, and I have to call bullshit on that because it is the exact same drum set visually that I can see. If you compare them side by side, it looks like the exact same drum set that Ben is using in 2016 at Wacken, and they play a full set, which includes some pretty heavy songs and a lot of their older songs which have double bass and all that stuff. So
Sing it with me, Wacken! Destroy! Let's go! Sing with me! Destroy! Destroy! Come on! Dragging Yes, thank you. 1, 2, 3, to remember. I see a prayer of course. By the way of the world. Yes, that's it. More crowd circle, let's go. My will is broken. Torn and torn.
So if you can play a full Parkway drive, like 6 album spread with a butt rock drum kit, then I don't even think that should be frowned upon. I think that should be impressive. If you want to call that a butt rock drum kit, then props to him, because he bangs the shit out of them and does a good job of it. Now let's move on to the breakdown or riff down or groove down, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people complain, like I said, about the build-up, the bridge being too long, and yes, it is drawn out, considering it's not the heaviest breakdown in the world afterwards and how long it is drawn out. Yes, it is long, but again, two things. Number one, it is going to decimate live. If it doesn't, there's something wrong with people at that show, because there's absolutely no reason you shouldn't have a massive circle pit going at that moment, or a wall of death, something. And number two, I didn't hear any bitching and moaning off the album Atlas, the song Swing, Parkway Drive. There's a long build up to the breakdown. Nobody complained about that long build up.
This song was born for battle. My heart was built for war.
It's like everyone just wants to hate on this one because it's softer and more mainstream and poppy. I've watched Winston say it and read online that they specifically wrote the song Bottom Feeder to decimate, and they always close with that song now. If you watch a full set, 99% of the time they're going to end with Bottom Feeder. They specifically wrote it to just destroy. And so it would not surprise me one bit if they intentionally made this bridge and build up to the breakdown long for this reason. It's easy to just sit back and criticize and say, oh, this is too simple of a song. I'm only mad because I know they're capable of so much better. And, you know, it's like, yeah, you could argue that. It's like they can definitely do more intricate stuff, but they've already done that. They kind of want to do this now. And again, we don't know where they're going next. I'm really curious to see what this whole album sounds like. I'm hoping there's a few good bangers and heavy hitters in there, but I'm expecting it to be mostly softer. And ever since they kind of delved into Reverence, they've been a lot more into the cinematics and the filming aspect of a lot of things. You'll notice in a lot of their music videos, especially Winston, they're just definitely like trying as hard as they're always super like into it and like dedicating their all to the acting aspect and everything. So I think that they're wanting to focus on like the cinematics and the refinement of the music and kind of just bring it all together, and they want to put on these huge, awesome shows and festivals, which is awesome. Unfortunately, that doesn't bode well for smaller US shows. In 2015, I saw them in Minneapolis at a venue called The Caboose. It is tiny. My house is bigger than this venue, I think. And I just can't fathom the thought now, after seeing them play Wacken to 80,000 people, ever seeing them in a venue like that again. And that was just a couple years back. Okay, now it's 7 years, but you know what I mean. Ire had come out and they were supporting that album on tour. So that's just one album ago, 1.5 now. I guess when Darker Still drops, it'll be 2 albums. But so they've exponentially grown, and they just want to be this like superpower, basically like the Metallica of the heavy metal world. And another thing to point out, guys, is that Parkway, especially Winston, they don't put a genre label on the band. They definitely started as metalcore, but he will not, when asked what kind of music they play or what they sound like, he just says, we sound like Parkway Drive, because they don't want to be chained to one genre. They've always been that way. It's just everyone's mad that they didn't stick with their original genre. And again, mentioning the cinematics, you've got like that statue head, the face that's opened up, and it's got the skull back there with all the rods. That thing, I don't know why, I just think that looks so sick. And then in the music video where Winston's bouncing around in that room, and there's rods coming through the walls, that kind of mimic the same rods that you can visually see in that skull head that's opened up. Just a lot of common theme within the video. They really take a lot of time to kind of think things out and plan it like that. A lot of people maybe oversee things like that, but that's why I'm pointing it out. And like I mentioned earlier, lots of black and white in this music video, so trying to portray possibly good versus evil, light and dark, possibly representing like the good and bad thoughts within his mind, or maybe just trying to reference Twilight Zone-esque stuff like I mentioned earlier. So now we have to address this. I might get a little heated here just because I don't understand. I don't get it. It's like one person on the internet says something and then it's law, right? So several people that have reacted to this video at the end with the flame jets coming up, they're like, oh, what is this? Lorna Shore? Like, bitch, please. Parkway Drive has been around years before Lorna Shore. They're more popular and bigger than Lorna Shore. Nothing against Lorna Shore. I actually hadn't heard of them until watching the reaction videos to this video, and I'm like, who the hell's Lorna Shore? And then I started watching them, and I actually do like them. Will Ramos on vocals is definitely a top tier guy when it comes to vocals. Deathcore just isn't quite my thing. I'll listen to it. I just prefer metalcore. But yeah, I just don't understand the reference as if Lorna Shore is the only band that uses flame jets. And, you know, I literally typed in Lorna Shore fire, and the only video I could find that had flame jets was To the Hellfire, which makes sense, but it's like, it's not like they use flame jets in every video. Parkway's been using flame jets and fire for a while now. I mean, heavily since Reverence, and they've even been using it since 2015, back when Ire dropped, like in Devil's Calling.
The devil's calling!
2016 at Wacken.
For the ones who stood beside me, still strong, you can't break me. You can't break me. Go, 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 go. You can't break me. Yeah. 12 years of what for us.
2019 at Amsterdam. Parkway, Architects, all these other bands been using fire for years, but all of a sudden they come out with a little bit more mainstream sounding song, and everyone's got to hate on it and jump on the bandwagon. Oh, what are they, Lorna Shore? Sorry to get off on a tangent, but I had to just kind of point out the stupidity with those comments. They just don't make any sense. So many people use fire. Shut up. Move on. Gosh! Another interesting thing I heard while watching some of the other review videos, I was watching Orion Reacts. Love his videos, by the way. Check him out if you have not heard of him. He thought that some parts of this song sounded a bit like newer Architects. And I was like, at first I was like, what? But then I was like, no, yeah, he's right. Some of their newer, less heavy songs, like Black Lungs. Animals.
We're just a bunch of fucking animals, but we're afraid of the outcome. Don't cry to me because the fiction that we're living in says I should pull the pin.
Which makes sense because both bands have been around for approximately the same amount of time. I don't know if they've ever toured together, but they have a lot of similarities, and most of the time if you like one of these bands, you probably like the other one. And then if you don't know, Winston actually was guest vocals on one of the newer Architects album, Impermanence. Winston has a couple of lines, and I think that really brings the song together, because while I like Sam and Architects, my one gripe with Sam is that like all of his screams is kind of like a constant mid-range or high range, and I'm more of a mid to low guy. So I really like that song because you get a pretty good range from Sam in that song, and then at the end Winston comes in with these pretty sick lows. You should watch Orion React's reaction video on Impermanence. It's pretty funny. But yeah, although there's a lot of differences, there's many similarities between Architects and Parkway. Both bands have been using quite a bit of orchestra, especially Architects on the Impermanence album. They have a live at Abbey Road.
We've got a choice, but now we find the choice to suffer, 'cause that's no escape. What's the future to lose? Swimming with concrete shoes, the reaper jumps to take the best of you. Can you see the writing on the wall? Again. Refuse. We were born to lose. Do you really want to live forever? 'Cause those afraid to die will never truly lose. Don't ever truly live.
Parkway and Reverence. I mean, they've done it before, but in Reverence they got real heavy into the orchestration.
Don't step out of line, you can run it pretty fast. Every face has its place in the crowd. They'll give you all the answers so you don't ask any questions, and they march you with a smile to the ground.
And we all go to heaven in a little row.
So put your hands up, put your hands up. If clawing for the scraps won't ever be enough, put your hands up, put your hands up. The writing's on the wall, this ain't ever gonna stop. So put your hands up, put your hands up. If clawing for the scraps won't ever be enough, we'll fight till we die, this ain't ever gonna stop. To the 9,000! No one will save you.
And so just in my mind, even though one's from Australia and one's from the UK, Architects and Parkway have always just kind of been like this. There's another Australian band called I Killed the Prom Queen. I don't think they're together anymore, but they were actually bigger than Parkway, and they had a split CD with Parkway Drive. And then on Parkway Drive's first actual solo album, the Don't Close Your Eyes album that I mentioned earlier, there's two different album covers for that. One of them is just kind of like this brown, I think it's like a rope or something, just kind of like a brownish gold album cover. The other one is what I believe is Winston doing like a scream, and if you look really, really, really close, it looks like he's wearing an Architects shirt. So, like I said, in my mind, they go way back together. I want to just read you guys this quick little snippet off of Wikipedia, kind of explaining the transition to where Parkway's at right now with their style of music and some of their influences. So it says, following the shift in style during Reverence, the album, Winston McCall, vocalist of Parkway, stated that Parkway Drive have outgrown metalcore and have transitioned away from their earlier roots. They have cited influences including Rage Against the Machine, Metallica, Slayer, Iron Maiden, Bad Religion, Pennywise, The Offspring, Faith No More, The Dillinger Escape Plan, Hatebreed, and Killswitch Engage. Also a fun fact, Winston has a younger brother, Oscar, who is vocalist in a band called 50 Lions, which you'll see, you probably saw or will see if I haven't posted them yet in some of the clips of the live videos. Winston is wearing a 50 Lions tank top to rep his little brother, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, all of those influence that I just listed, again, I have a big feeling that this album is going to be paying tribute to those types of bands. And I think I can't remember who did the interview, but Winston said that he said Jeff, the lead guitarist of Parkway, really likes 90s music, and so Winston said there's a lot of 90s in this album. So it's going to be interesting. And kind of rolling into the last topic of this video, it's still going to be a few minutes here. Sorry, I'm trying to wrap it up, but I do just have a lot to cover. But this will kind of be like the last portion here, and that is the fact that a lot of people said that the song feels forced. But again, they've been working on it for 4 years, so I really don't think that, maybe it sounds or feels forced, but I don't think it was forced. Again, this is just kind of them coming from a dark place mentally. Even in Reverence, it seems like they were kind of in a dark place. You look at songs like Wishing Wells, and just the whole kind of overall vibe of that album was kind of about how the elites controlling the masses and stuff like that. So I think a lot of this has been coming for a long time, and people just haven't really been paying attention. But if there's one thing for certain, it's that Parkway knows what they're doing. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't be headlining huge festivals like Wacken. It was literally like the biggest metal show each year, 75 to 85,000 people. It's huge. And they're not afraid to take small steps in different directions. That's what they want to do. They like some criticism. They don't like when everyone's like, oh yeah, it sounded great, man. Like they want a little controversy. I'm going to read you a clip here. This is post Ire album. So Ire came out in 2015. This is a quote from Winston in 2016. He said, on our last album, we wanted to do something that would make people go, you aren't allowed to do this. This isn't in the rule book. There were so many lightning rod moments where we said, the criticism will come here, here, and here. We wanted to do that to encourage individuality. If you end up all following the same path, you'll be walking around in circles forever. Okay, so right there, they want to be different. They don't want to do the same thing over and over and over. Now, maybe this isn't super important, but I figured just to kind of see things through the scope of Parkway, or at least through Winston's eyes, I would read you this Reddit snippet. It's about an interview. It was originally in German, so it's translated to English, and that's why the numbers, every album is ranked number 1, but this is Winston ranking his albums from favorite and least favorite and all that. So I'm just gonna kind of read what he has to say about each album, and just let it be known that they don't even acknowledge Don't Close Your Eyes. They kind of pretend like that album never existed, which is a little sad. I think they do it just because they feel like it wasn't good because of that whole raw aspect of it. But I mean, that album was literally the epitome of early 2000s metalcore. If you were living in the early 2000s and you were like all about the Killswitch Engage and stuff like that, you would like Don't Close Your Eyes, I think. So we're gonna go from least favorite to favorite here. But anyway, we'll start with their first studio album, Killing with a Smile. Winston says he feels least connected with this album because it's so far in the past at this point. He is quite unhappy in the terms of lyrics and songwriting. Again, this is a band who's come this far, and they're looking back or down at the past from their current refinement standpoint. They're like, oh, we could have done so much more with this, but they're just not quite realizing, that's what made it so special. The next least favorite album for him is Atlas, which is kind of surprising to me. He says, Atlas was the album where they realized that they need to work on a new sound. Though there are songs on it that Winston still enjoys, such as Dark Days, Wild Eyes, and Blue in the Gray, he feels like a lot of the songs felt the same, which resulted in a lack of identity. I don't know, I mean, I think there was some decent diversity throughout the album. When you pick an album, it's pretty common that you stick with a certain theme and you don't stray too far from the common theme on the album. So, I don't know. I think they're just looking back at their older stuff and being like, oh man, could have done this. Next up is Horizon. See, it's not at the bottom of the totem pole, guys. It is third from the bottom. He likes the album still. So he still loves Horizons, but he feels like a lot of the riffs are wasted, meaning that they would have made them work better now had they had the chance to reconstruct the album. Like I was mentioning earlier, they're looking at how they would have done things differently, but again, that's what made that record special. If you took all those riffs away, that album probably would have been trash, or it just wouldn't have been the same. Next is Deep Blue, which is probably my personal favorite. It's really hard for me because, like I said earlier, I love every Parkway album. There's not a bad song by them in my opinion, but just with things I was going through in my life and the fact that within only a couple of years prior I had found out about Parkway, Deep Blue was the first album where, like, when it dropped, I was ready for it and I knew it was coming and I like fully submersed myself in it. So that's why I really like Deep Blue. Plus I feel like there's just a lot of elements where you can kind of hear and experience a lot of stuff from their newer albums mixed with their old albums. It's kind of like the perfect blend, in my opinion. But on Deep Blue, Winston says this is their first more ambitious record due to its concept. Also the first time where they realized weird ideas, such as songs like Pressures, which is intended as a palindrome, which apparently means in the middle of the song it's played in reverse order. But he regrets putting the concept above the songwriting, but says that they learned a valuable lesson this way, and that the album marked their commercial breakthrough, as I stated. So again, in all these albums I'm seeing so far, he just has this regret and feels that the songwriting wasn't good enough. But my man, metalcore songwriting and lyrics have never been like the strong suit, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think he's just being a little critical and harsh, and kind of how a lot of bands are, where they just, they feel like they're the best, which they probably are realistically, because they can still play all their old stuff. So they're at the pinnacle of their performance right now. It's just that they're not wanting to produce something like that again. The top now, so Deep Blue was like dead in the middle. Ire is his second favorite. He loves this album and was never so proud of a record until Reverence came out. This was the first Parkway record where they didn't pay attention to creative borders and let their influences run into the album. He refers to Vice Grip as their biggest song and was surprised that a few people were so pissed off by the sound. Yeah, I mean, Vice Grip is just like a pretty good banger. It's not the lightest song in the world. I don't see why people would be so hateful of it. And, that's a big radio song. I've heard that song on local rock stations, not super frequently, but not just on satellite radio, but also a local rock station. And that's huge that they, a band like that can get a song on a local rock station, because normally those types of stations don't play stuff that heavy. So yeah, I'm kind of surprised that, I guess, there was a lot of backlash with Vice Grip, but also after seeing the comments on Glitch, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. And then finishing off with Reverence, of course, the most recent album is his favorite. So when he was asked about what happened to their aggressive sound back in 2017, he said that a lot of stuff happened behind the scenes which changed his perspective and his lyrics. So again, there's a lot of stuff going, like I said, from even before Reverence, where things have been happening in their lives that we don't know about, we don't see. So it's kind of hard to judge when you don't know everything. He says that they didn't want to waste time just playing it safe. Heavy part here, breakdown there, please like us. Again, they want to break the mold, they want to be different. They don't like just everybody saying, yeah, it was great. They want some constructive criticism. He says, we don't want to waste time with this. Apparently there was some tragic events within their lives that gave that album its dark feeling, and he thinks that this is the most heavy and honest record Parkway Drive have ever wrote. Not in terms of mechanical brutality, but in brutality of pure human emotions, which I guess I could see that. Winston says, it's not hard to sing about stabbing someone or revenge fantasies over fast drums and punchy guitars. It's hard to say goodbye to someone forever. Which is true. Obviously, so I guess on every record he dedicates one song to his wife, and Cemetery Bloom was his wife's song on Reverence, but you listen to songs like The Color of Leaving, and although it's an extremely soft song and completely not metalcore, if you just listen to it with open ears, it's a very, very powerful song, and there's obviously great loss that either him or other members or all of the above have experienced recently, like many of us have. He also says that they needed clean vocals in order for the album to work so that it achieves a greater effect in terms of sound. So again, going back to what Alex Hefner said about the dynamic aspect, you kind of have to have, like Winston's saying, it's not hard to do drum here, breakdown there, this there, chunky guitar there. It's harder to make it more dynamic, where you have like a clean vocal and then into something raw and punchy, and that transition, and that's what they seem to like more now. He also says that he didn't want to rap on shadowboxing. He just wanted to say a lot of words really fast so it would feel like you're being hit. After he was told it sounded like rapping, he was like, okay, I'll take it. Well, yeah, when you say words fast, that's basically rapping, Winston. And then at the very end, right there, just like I said, he doesn't identify Parkway Drive with any specific genre. So please stop saying that they abandoned metalcore and that they alienated the metalcore fan base. Because yes, I for the 90th time, I understand where those people are coming from, but Parkway has never said, we are this and we are going to be this. Hardly any bands do that for reasons like this. They want to have the freedom to move around and explore their different talents. All in all, I'm just really happy to have new music from them. I've honestly been craving it for like a good solid year or two at this point. Kind of going through withdrawals. I just wanted something new from them. As much as I love their older stuff and I can just keep listening and listening, I'm just like, man, it's been like 4 years. When are they going to drop something new? And they finally did, so I'm just glad that they're back. I'm glad they didn't break up. For God's sake, can we just say we're glad that they didn't break up? Some of those posts that I posted earlier that they put up on socials, I mean, kind of had me worried for a minute that they were going to be disbanding possibly. So I really hope they can work out whatever they have going on. Again, they obviously know what they're doing. They're headlining huge festivals that bring in tons of money. You just look at shows like Bloodstock, Wacken, and they're just having the time of their lives. Jaya's in a wheelchair. Jeff and Luke are jamming out. Winston is just super into it always, and they feed off the energy. The bigger the crowd, the louder they are, the more energy it is, the more they put into the show. I swear to God, it is 100% like lateral. The more energetic you are, the more energetic they are.
From the front all the way to the horizon. One big fucking family. Fuck the words. Sing now.
fucking God, thank you. Thank you.
Ben did the drum Cage of Death, where he's like playing the drum. They must have it bolted down, but he's in this like spinny drum where he goes upside down and he's drumming to beat hell. And like I said, if I'm being honest, I can't name one bad Parkway Drive song. There's people just so into it with the wows and everything. It's just something special when you see them. And I've never personally met them, but you know, from what I've seen of them, they just seem like very genuine guys. I'll insert a few like kind of funny clips here. There's one where I think Winston lit a flare and he set it in a bucket, and then the fire alarm went off, and then they were trying to figure out how to turn off the fire alarm, and then Luke's guitar quit working, so Jeff improvised by playing some Message in a Bottle, and they just kind of got the crowd going. They're just very intimate with the crowds. Doesn't matter the size of the venue. They always are just putting out 100%, and that is something really special out of a band. And they're well respected within the community that's basically a family. I know Jaya, the bassist of Parkway, he had some family issues for a while, and Thy Art is Murder bassist stepped in to substitute with them for a while, so just super cool, things like that. They're always just backing each other up, just super chill, cool dudes with lots of energy.
See, normally we just like play on and pretend nothing fucking happened, but this is the last song, and we don't come up here all that often, so I do want to make sure we do it fucking properly. So I felt like Darth Vader with that fucking flare, like I had a lightsaber or something, and then he just crashed it. Oh, we got a false fire alarm now. He's back. He's back. 1 second. Are we okay, Lizzie? Are we okay, Lizzie? Yay, nay, medium. This one's called Home is for the Heartless, minus the fuck-ups. Oh, we're still not good. We're still waiting. No, Noisy? This is fucking open, huh? We're sorry for fire alarm now, someone opened the door, so give him some stink, give him some police. It's good! It's good! Home is for the heartless. For time!
And I've got to just insert this clip here from Richo POV. He's awesome to watch too. Go watch his stuff if you haven't yet, his reaction videos. But just the energy that he gives off talking about Parkway, and that's how I feel about it.
I used to see this band in tiny little venues. Now they're selling out goddamn stadiums. They have movies. They've got everything. From where this band started to where they are now is something so goddamn impressive. If you have not seen their documentaries, go and watch them. If you have not listened to their music before, go and listen to it. These dudes can do no wrong. Parkway Drive, I freaking love you guys, man. Thank you for making great music for so many years.
So as you can see, he's pretty amped up and stoked about it. And like he said, they really can do no wrong in my eyes. I mean, unless they came out with like, I don't know, a straight up pop album next, or like jazz, something completely off the spectrum, I don't see them losing me anytime soon. But kind of just to close out here, if you're one of those diehard people that you really do like the old Parkway, and if you haven't heard of this band, it's a German metalcore band called Dark Days. Parkway Drive has a song called Dark Days. So I'm going to read you a little bit about this band. You may be interested. The band, German metalcore band, Dark Days, from Gießen, I don't know if it's Gießen or Gießen, Germany, formed in 2018. And they said, quote, "We describe our music as a subgenre of metalcore consisting of lead and rhythmic guitar influenced by metalcore bands such as Trivium and Parkway Drive, drums influenced by modern melodic hardcore bands such as Malevolence, Silent Planet, and Bloom, vocals influenced by metal and deathcore bands such as Lorna Shore and Amur." Sounds like some pretty good influences, and I have listened to a few of their songs, and I can definitely hear some of those influences within those songs. So definitely check out Dark Days if you are into the more metalcore style music. So that is finally going to wrap it up, guys. I'm sorry I drug it out so long. It's just, like I said, literally my favorite band right now, so I really wanted to dive in, kind of come to their defense where I felt like I should, point out some of the, like I said, a little bit of the hypocrisy. I don't want to play just one side of the fence. There is some hypocrisy where they're, craving to be on stage, but then they don't come to the US. So I'm not just saving face here. I'm just calling it as it is, but I did want to point out a lot of these things that most people probably didn't know about Parkway because they're just not as big of a fan. So kind of just to wrap things up, I'm going to give a Drunk Tony rating out of 10. Probably give this one 6 beers out of 10. It would have to be perfect to get a 10, so almost no song is going to get that. It was definitely not an 8 or a 9. It would probably be a 7, but because I know it's Parkway and I expect better and I know they can do more, I'm giving it the 6. So I think that's fair. Still puts it above the middle average on the spectrum between 1 and 10, so I think that's fair for this. That being said, though, I think there will be some better songs on the album, so I'm excited for that. So if you've held in this long, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You're one hell of a trooper, or you're one hell of a Parkway Drive fan, or you just forgot to click off the video and it's still playing, in which case, thank you for the view time. Thanks so much for watching Tony's Drunk Reactions. Also, if you have any automotive needs, make sure to check out my other channel, Tony the Truck Guy. Stay tuned for more videos like this. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.